Om Tat Sat. So today it appears like a very auspicious day. We'll begin to learn Bhagavad Gita, but not in a traditional way. Even if you don't know anything about Sanskrit, do not worry. Let's have the prayer. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karvavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Vitvesha Vahai Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we live together, may we be nourished together, and may we study the brilliance of your knowledge together, leading to self-unfoldment without any sense of pride, prejudice, or ego. Before we begin on Bhagavad Gita, few words and where Bhagavad Gita is coming from. So some of those Sanskrit words, even though I have written in English, vid is the root verb to know. Vid also means an adjective that means one who knows the ultimate reality. Veda is the fundamental scriptures. I would go into it. Upanishad are the essence of life and knowledge that appears in the later part of Veda. Shruti, the word shru comes from something hearing. That means the gurus, the rishis, yogis, in their deeper state of contemplation, they were thinking about the life as to what is life. Koham kuto jagat. Koham, who am I? And kuto jagat, what is this world around me? And what or who is the supreme reality? Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. And Smriti means recollecting, using one's brain, and whatever they have heard. So that has, after the Ved Upanishad were so-called perceived, some great sage by name Vyasa has produced, and other seers have produced, two great itihasa history. And those two histories are Mahabharata and Ramayana. Mahabharata has 100,000 sloka, or around 200,000 lines in that history book. And this is such a powerful history book that it is said that there is no story which is not in Mahabharata. Bhagavad Gita is from Mahabharata, 18 chapters, and it is from section 23 to 40 in the Bhishma Parva of the epic Mahabharata. Let's not get into it so that you know what is Bhagavad Gita. Now, the following words are very, very important. First of all, one has to understand, and a lot of time it has been misunderstood it to be a religious book. It is not a religious book. It is extremely spiritual. It is something that can lead us to moksha, liberation, heaven, whatever you call it. It's one of the most practical books, and that deals against and it guides us how to get rid of anger, how to get rid of depression, greed, confusion, discrimination, laziness, pride, uncontrolled mind, forgiveness, demotivated, loneliness, peace management, and a lot more. Having talked about a little bit of day-to-day problems, you can easily think and say that Gita, which is very commonly called as Srimad Bhagavad Gita, there are different kinds of Gitas available as well. But this Gita is said to be the essence of all Upanishad. And that covers so many different aspects of life. Now, we will, over the time, we will look at it. What is Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara? Jiva, every being, Jagat, the world, and Ishvara, the supreme reality. It's some of the words which come on in our discussion. That's why I'm just covering it up right in the beginning. This is one of the very, very powerful sloka from Veda, and the first line is so commonly called everywhere, Ano Bhadraha Kratavo Yantu Vishwata. So what does it say in short? Because we will not be spending time on it, but it says, may noble thought come from all direction, every direction. And you should see how encompassing it is. Religions are man-made, while this is considered to be apurushe, that means hasn't been devised or written by any human being. And the reason is this revelation comes to us in a deeper state of silence. Now, we'll go to the first chapter, first sloka of Bhagavad Gita, and let's see what does that has to say. And if you read the translation, Dhritarashtra, the king, and we'll talk about it, said, O Sanjaya, after gathering on the holy field of Kurukshetra and desiring to fight, what did my sons and sons of Pandu do? Now you may wonder what this one is talking about. Okay. There's few words, and before that, who is Dhritarashtra? What is Dharmakshetra? what is Kurukshetra, what is Kaurava, and what is Pandava. That little part we need to understand. And in this slide, the first sloka that talks about, out of 700 sloka, by the way. So it says, Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Sama Vetayu Yutsavaha Mamakaha Pandavas Chaiva Kim Kurvata Sanjaya. Okay, so now let me explain you a few words. First of all, who is Dhritarashtra? What do we mean by Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, all those words? So first I will just literally go into the translation, and then we'll try to explain the most practicality as to how that can be used in our day-to-day life. Dhritarashtra Uvacha, Uvacha means speaks. Dharma Kshetra, Kshetra, field, area. Dharma is righteousness. Kuru Kshetra, Kuru is a dynasty, a tribe of the people. So Kuru Kshetra, Kshetra again means the area, the kingdom. Samaveta, Samaveta, gathered together. Then Yuyutsavaha, Yuyutsavaha, that means they gather together for fighting. Mamka, mine. Pandava Shaiva, mine, and Pandava, the Pandu, Dhritarashtra and Pandu, they are cousin brothers. So Pandu's children are called Pandava. So here he wants to know what my and my cousin brother Pandava's children are doing. Kim, what? Kurvata, doing. Sanjaya. Sanjaya is his minister, Pradhan, or the right-hand man. And Sanjaya can be considered, in my plain word, like a TV screen, meaning war is fought somewhere else, but it can be seen on the television screen. This was similar duties Sanjay was doing, because Dhritarashtra is a blind person, blind king, or he is portrayed as a blind person. Now, let me get out of this slide and we talk. So first understand, this whole scenario is on the Kurukshetra. Kuru, the kingdom of Dhritarashtra. And as Dhritarashtra was coming to the closer to the end of the life, the two right inheritance people would have been Dhritarashtra's children and Pandu's children. But way deep in the Dhritarashtra's mind was that only my children, and the chief of that, or the prince of wealth, happened to be Duryodhana. Again, don't worry about the names or anything else. But when the king thinks of that his own son, the prince of wealth, should only take the kingdom and not his cousin brothers, what does it show? It shows the first element, greed. Now, any time in our day-to-day life we have greed, understand that we are no better than Dhritarashtra. And who was Dhritarashtra? Dhritarashtra has been portrayed as a blind king. What do you mean by the blind king? Not necessarily physically blind, but his vision is so tinted and his vision is so narrowed that he does not see anything else. Now, what is this narrowness here? If he is the king, understand this. If he is the king, then his first and the primary duty towards his kingdom and not towards his son. So he was blinded by his love for his prince of wealth, whose name is Duryodhana. So he was so much wanted his son to be the king. And as a result, he was blinded by himself, by his love for his son, towards the entire kingdom, towards all the civic, every person in the kingdom. So understand, this is the blindness. Do not simply look at the translation and proceed further. Try not to take it as a story. It's how practical it is in our day-to-day life. Now, the very first word begins with Dharma Kshetra. There are 2-3 interpolations with it. So first of all, Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra. If you take Dharma Kshetra as an adjective to Kurukshetra, what does it mean? That from time before even Dhritarashtra, Kuru dynasty was known to be a dynasty of dharma, dynasty of righteousness, dynasty of looking for everybody's betterment, everybody's growth, and everybody meaning not necessarily kings, queens, and princes and prince, but every person in the country. Kurukshetra, understand? So it could be taken that way. The second interpretation, if you do not take Dharmakshetra as an adjective, but if you can take Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra, even though the word Cha doesn't appear and doesn't appear, but it is strictly my interpolation for our convenience. So Dharmakshetra is the very first word in this Bhagavad Gita. What does it show? So any of our kshetra, kshetra again, the area, kingdom, the field of activities, or our life. Our entire life should be full of dharma. And what is dharma? Dharma, we can simply say, oh, righteousness. But do you really understand, or do we mean what is righteousness? If we were to follow the path of righteousness, we need to be peaceful. We need to be blissful. We need to be fully content. And we should be full of karuna, the compassion. That is dharma. And what is dharma again? The word dharma comes from the Sanskrit explanation. Dharayati iti dharma. Now, what do you mean by dharyati? Something that beholds you. What do you mean by beholding? Something that protects your whole life. Something that gives you the purpose of your life. Something that brings you to experience and enjoy being born and not as a burden to himself as well as to the others. So when we are not following the path of righteousness, dharma, so again I will say something that beholds you is dharma. And please do not translate dharma as a religion. And initially somebody may, but we are learning Bhagavad Gita and its implication as to how it could be considered to be one of the best guide in our life to shape up our life, to remove our confusion. And this is not a matter of anybody guiding you. Once you go and develop relative peace and try to contemplate every word on it, then the inner transformation takes place, inner understanding takes place. And the very first word, dharma kshetra. And if we want to make our life to be that of dharma kshetra, meaning no matter what we do, whatever is our doing, does that doing behold me? Does it make me peaceful? Does it expand my vision? Does it make me feel compassionate with the whole world, whole birth, and the entire life? So word dharma is so important, so critical. And that kshetra on which you carry out your entire life. And it's not only that while reading Bhagavad Gita, you think of it is dharma kshetra. No, the entire life. So you can imagine what a beautiful scripture, I call it scripture, I won't even call it a book. What a beautiful scripture is this, that the very first word, the guidance begins full-fledged. It guides us. It opens our eyes. And mind you, even the first word, it begins Dhritarashtra Uvacha. What is Dhritarashtra, the blind man, blind king? Are we also not blind in our day-to-day activity? Do we truly understand the purpose of our life? Do we understand? We are seeking for peace, we are seeking for contentment, and we are seeking for compassion for somebody else to give it to us. This is not somebody else's affair. This is the matter of one's own, and that's why we have heard many times that the spirituality is a singular journey. We alone are the student, and we alone are the teacher. And we alone have to learn on the field of dharma kshetra. It looks like I'm just beginning, and I may have to stop here. We are reaching to the time limit, I'm sorry. But what we'll do, we'll continue, and we just cursory touch upon the first word, dharma kshetra, and blindness of the king, and Dhritarashtra is no other person than we all. And Kurukshetra if nothing but our entire life will continue further, let us have Nishantipat. Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.